So, in this episode of Cloud with Chris, we're going to be talking about Azure Kubernetes Service. And when you think about AKS or Azure Kubernetes Service, you need to think about the underlying networking choices that you're going to be making. Not just that, but how does traffic actually make its way into your cluster? You have some decisions to make, and they're important decisions. And here today, we'll be helping you make those. Hello there, welcome back to another episode of Cloud with Chris. You're with me, Chris Reddington, and here we talk about all things cloud. Now, thank you folks for joining today. We have got an interesting session. If you are in the Kubernetes space, you probably have seen some of those documentation pieces and some of those considerations that when you make your AKS cluster, you have some decisions to make. Do you go KubeNet? Do you go Azure CNI? Do you have like an Nginx ingress? Do you go App Gateway Ingress Controller? So many decisions to make, and you're only at the beginning of your journey. So how do you start? Well, we're here to help, I should say, on this episode. So before we jump in, you know the deal. If you like the session, please hit the like button, please hit subscribe and the notification bell so you can keep up to date as soon as there is brand new content available for you to go and watch or listen to. So with that, folks, let's go ahead and introduce for our guest for the day, David Frappart. Bonsoir, David.
Hello, Chris. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for joining. How are we doing? Are you well?
Fine, quite well.
Excellent. Good.
This is the end of the day for me, so I'm quite happy and to finish with you tonight.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. So I guess then best place to start, as always, is introductions. So who are you, David?
Yep. So as you might imagine, I'm an IT guy working in IT and specifically in Azure. Lately, more in the Azure Kubernetes Service area, which is fine because this is the topic of tonight. And specifically with some decisions regarding the infrastructure and security configuration of the Azure side, because I'm more an infra guy than a development guy.
Sure.
So I have this approach from the upside in Azure and in Kubernetes specifically. I think that's quite all for me. So also I've been doing some talk, not with Chris, this is my first time, so I'm happy again. But I have been doing some talk about technical stuff. That's why I think Microsoft, because I'm talking way too much, they gave me the MVP title to thank me for that, and hopefully so that I could stop. But unfortunately, they had the opposite effect, and I'm talking more and more. And well,
it's good.
You know,
no, it's good. It's good. I think that's one of the great things about the MVP community is it's so thriving. There are so many great speakers and enthusiastic people. So thank you for doing it all, I think. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there in the community who are very thankful for that. So I guess focusing on the Kubernetes side for a moment here, I guess you mentioned there that you're more of an infrastructure guy than an app dev person. So I think it's really important before we jump into any of this for anyone who's maybe new to Kubernetes or thinking about AKS and Kubernetes. I think sometimes people have the misconception that Kubernetes is platform as a service. It's PaaS, it's something really simple and easy to set up. But actually, there's still a lot of configuration, still a lot of management and infrastructure that is needed, isn't there?
Yep, this is quite complicated, and you're perfectly right. This is considered as a PaaS service, but at the same time, it's not. And that's what is difficult and interesting and passionate with it. You do have some part which is managed, which is mainly what we call in Kubernetes the control plane, but all the worker plan is not really so much managed. Well, not totally, and it's living in more classical IaaS building blocks, such as the virtual network and other stuff. And for those stuff, you have some consideration to take into account, such as the networking model, as you mentioned. And if you want to have your service interact with something outside and protect that, obviously, you have some question regarding some other architectural parts, which are, for example, the ingress controller. And you can consider either the community-driven tool, such as Nginx, or the more managed service, such as Application Gateway, which is exactly the topic of tonight.
It is, and there we go. Nice segue with the transition there as well. So I guess then I'm sure we'll jump into it here, but Agic, KubeNet, if I'm in the beginning or still learning Kubernetes, these are some terms that may not make a bit of sense
Yep.
to me here.
Yeah, I will try to explain that. But first of all,
Perfect.
I want to give you a little history of why this session. As you can see, it is written tip and tricks, because, well, for me at least, Kubernetes was a lot of trial and error, and you will see that it's much more easier to do now. But
Yes.
at first, application gateway as an ingress controller was already a difficult part to put in place, not that much anymore. And if you had Kubernetes, which is again something that we'll explain later, it was adding another layer of complexity, and that's why I had to find out how it needed to be configured to make it work. And luckily or unluckily for me, when I was ready to perform this session, Microsoft updated its AGIC configuration, and it was way more easy to do. So that's why you will see that I have an easy part, and then I have the control freak part, which is still complicated, but hopefully we will know how to do it if for any reason we want to keep it the control freak way. Okay.
Awesome. Excellent. Covering all bases. Love it. Let's do this.
Yep. Let me switch on the next slide, but I need to find, where am I? Okay, so I already introduced myself, but what I did not say is that I am a huge Final Fantasy fan, also Star Wars fan, as you can see from my background, but Final Fantasy, which is why I have this very nice black mage, which is quite similar to a Jawa, which I find funny anyway.
I hadn't noticed, but now you've said it, I can't unsee it. It is basically a Jawa. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a Jawa. Except that the Jawa doesn't launch some thunderstroke or stuff like that. But anyway.
Sure.
Except if you have a Sith Jawa. But I did not see that yet.
No,
Interesting
not
part.
yet.
Anyway. But I digress. Okay, so the agenda. We'll do some concept review as promised. And then we will look at two ways of deploying AGIC. The simplest way with the add-on, we'll explain that, and then the control freak way, which I mentioned earlier, with Helm chart and the AGIC as an open source project, which require another open source project, which is Pod Identity. Well, as a matter of fact, everything in Azure Kubernetes Service is taking origin in open source project, which is very nice because it means that Microsoft are more open than they were in the past. So we are quite happy about that, and which is also very complicated again because it means that we need to rely on some other community tool before being able to do what we need to do in Kubernetes in Azure. Once it's ready, usually it becomes an add-on, such as the case for AGIC and also for Pod Identity, but that's another story. Okay.
But it's an interesting point, though. I think I have that discussion when I'm speaking with organizations about AKS and Kubernetes as well. And some of them get a little hung up on that point about things like Pod Identity and these things being open source projects. Until I remind them, well, Kubernetes itself is this big open source project, and yes, AKS is not a separate Microsoft fork or flavor or anything like that. It is still just Kubernetes, still relying on the same upstream open source components. So if there is a problem with quote unquote Kubernetes, you can't go to Microsoft to fix that. You need to go to upstream Kubernetes and get that fixed, and it's gets rid of, I guess, that discussion, but it's something important for people to be aware of, I guess, that even Kubernetes itself is open source, and you'll find a lot of those projects you rely on will be open source as well.
Yep, which make it much more richer than what we had in the past, but Absolutely. At the same time still has the tendencies to generate some paranoia about the open source mindset, which is not yet familiar to all the Microsoft first
exactly
follower, let's say.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, let's move on. first, we will discuss about networking model choice because we have this part, and you mentioned that in the introduction, as a matter of fact. And second, we'll discuss about what is application gateway as an ingress controller. So first, you know that you mentioned it. We have two choices when we create an Azure Kubernetes service cluster. Either we go with Azure CNI, either we go with Kubernetes. Kubernetes is not exactly a CNI in the pure sense of way, but we can consider as one simple translation of the networking feature in Kubernetes. And Azure CNI, as the name implies, is the version developed by Microsoft. Obviously, the one developed by Microsoft is much more integrated in Azure, and you do have some feature that you don't get otherwise, such as, for example, if you're familiar with that, the virtual node capability, which allow you to, for example, have a container instance in an Azure container instance, add it to your cluster and without having to provision some cluster. This is one example.
Yes.
You do have also the Windows node, because
Indeed.
some people want to do container with Windows. I don't know why, but well, some people do. So you need to do Azure CNI if you want to do this kind of stuff.
Yes.
The much more important stuff is related to the network and how it's working, even if there are some change announced in the last release of Kubernetes, Azure Kubernetes service. You need to consider the VNet range in the network consideration. Each object in your Kubernetes will consume an IP, being the node or the pod. And so you need to have a huge IP range available for your virtual network if you want to use Azure CNI, which might be an issue because if you have some quite old entity or company, the RFC 1918 is quite already used or depleted, and so you don't have that much of IP range available. So if you have a /16 available for all your Azure, you're quite happy. So you cannot assign a /16 for only your Kubernetes service, so you're kind of stuck. Yeah. Unless you do Kubernetes, which is much less integrated, but has the advantage to be able to give you the ability of consuming less IP, because only the node will consume IP. So you can have /24, so only 256 IP in your virtual network, and it's okay because you will only have to plan for the IP of your node. And if you happen to have already more than 60 nodes in your cluster, this is quite a big cluster, and you're doing a lot of things about that, so you're quite good, so you should not have any problem. So that's your two choice, but there are some other consideration, obviously. So to summarize, I'm sorry, there is a lot of rain. I hope it's not doing too much noise.
I don't hear it at all. Great microphone.
So if you consider Kubernetes or Azure CNI, you can see on the screen we have on the left Kubernetes and on the right CNI. And the main point to consider is that if you have Kubernetes, you have a kind of NAT configuration between your pod and your virtual network. While on the other end, if you have Azure CNI, you have a kind of bridge, and that's where there is a modification. There is a bridge and another which is called transparent mode, I think, which is quite new. Nevertheless, what it implies is that your pod is consuming an IP range from your virtual network on the right, while on the left it's consuming an IP in another range that is hidden from your virtual network, which is fine. Here I have a nice print screen of what happens if you do some stuff in the portal, which I do not because I hate portal, but sometimes you need to that to illustrate some stuff. And as you can see, Kubernetes is also called the basic configuration, while Azure CNI is the advanced network configuration. So you have less option with with Kubernetes for the creation than with Azure CNI, unless you do that with some API tools such as AZCLI or Terraform, for example. Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
And yep,
I was going to say, I think this is really the key point, isn't it? I think which you're getting onto here, which is the reason you might want to go, for quote unquote the advanced, and I think they've got rid of the basic and advanced terms now, is the fact that Azure CNI, you get these IP addresses for every single pod or every single node. So if you do need to speak to resources outside of a cluster, like let's say in another virtual network or on premises, for example, or something like that, where you've got some interesting routing requirements, if you just had the IP address for the node, then hold on, you've got to start thinking about things like network address translation, where the IP addresses are coming from, and things can get quite complicated. Whereas if you've just got a container with an IP address on the network, it's actually a lot simpler. So for anyone trying to understand, big picture, why one or the other, that's probably a good indicator when you start thinking about it.
That's exactly right. If you isolate your pod, you're not really in a virtual network anymore. So the simplicity of the routing is not inherited anymore. And so you need to consider an additional piece in Azure so that you can configure your routing in a custom way, which is the user-defined route, which is what I mentioned on this slide.
Yes.
You still are able to access other service as you did mention, but the traffic need to be initiated from the pod. If you want to initiate the traffic the other way around, you need to expose your service with other Kubernetes port, which is not quite what we want to talk about, but we can do that.
Sure.
Okay. So due to the isolation, as I said, there is a user-defined route which need to be considered, but hopefully Microsoft is doing that for you. But what is not necessarily seen by everyone is that you still consume 3 big ranges for your cluster, even in Kubernetes, that should not be used anywhere else. I will show you that. Let me switch on the next one. Okay, so maybe I will switch to the portal so that you can see some real stuff, because slides are good, but only for what we want to see.
There we go. If I could ask you to zoom in a bit.
Yes,
David.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I think I need to zoom so that you're not blind at the end of the session. So as you can see, is that big enough?
One more, and then I think we'll be good.
Okay.
Perfect. That's good. Thank you.
Okay. So as you can see, here we are on my subscription. And you can see that I have one cluster which is called AKS AG, because we'll use AG. And on this one, you can see that over there also. Let me just check if I have my zoom in tool so I can zoom in and show you what I want to show you. Okay, so as you can see on the networking side, you have the pod CIDR and the service CIDR, and another one which is called Docker Bridge CIDR, even if it's quite different, this one. So, but let's focus on the two first. As you can see, pod CIDR is a /16, and service CIDR is also a /16, which is quite a big range. And you have the last one, which is Docker Bridge CIDR, but I don't really understand this one. This is quite fun. As you can see, there is a /16, but there is also the .1, which means that is an IP address. So I don't know why there is a /16 and we are only using one IP, but well, just remember that you are configuring your cluster, even in Kubernetes, with 3 required ranges. Sorry. And if you don't specify that when you create your cluster, you will get those ranges. Okay, and those ranges, they will be used by your pod and stuff in Kubernetes. But if by happenstance those ranges are used elsewhere in the outside stuff of Kubernetes, well, the route will not be fine. So it won't work. So you need to consider that. I was not aware of that at one point, and then I reread the documentation by discussing with some other people who highlight that, and it's written quite more clearly now. If you need to reach something that is in this range, for example, the pod CIDR range, you can't. Not with the pad, because it will be able eventually to resolve the DNS, but it will not find the network route to access it.
Exactly. It doesn't know where to go from the virtual network. Be stuck. Yeah, exactly.
So that's a very important point. You can specify other ranges if you want to, if you create your cluster on your own, but you need to consider that when you create your cluster. Okay. What else? Let me just switch again on that. As you can see, you also have a limitation of the number of nodes. You can have only 400 nodes because you are limited to 400 routes in your user-defined route. Or 12. 400 nodes is again a quite huge cluster, so I don't think that's the main issue here. But I guess the 400 routes should be considered because if for any reason you want to reach something which is connected, for example, through express route, and for any reason the express route which gets its routes from BGP will propagate those routes to your configuration, you will need to update your routes with all those routes inherited from BGP, and it can be an issue because sometimes you have more than 400 routes in the BGP inherited routes. So that can be an issue that you need to consider, and you need to either be a master of BGP, which is not my case, or find the master of BGP will be able to help you in your quest of configuring your Kubernetes. Okay. And last point, but not least, as you can see, each node is assigned a /24 in the service CIDR subnet. So in the 10.0.0/16, we do have a lot of /24, but I don't know what happens if I have more node than I am able to have with this /16. I don't know what happened if that's the case. So I never test that. I guess I should, but anyway. And as you can see on this slide, again, I will switch in the cluster configuration in the properties to show you that in the backend I do have this route which is created by the service at the provisioning time, and as you can see I have dynamic routes which are created by the AKS managed identity, so that each time I have a new node, a new route is added, so that my network is able to find the route through this user-defined route. So, for example, I have 3 nodes, and there is a route for each of my node, and you can see that the address prefix is the address prefix of my service CIDR, and that the next hop IP is, as a matter of fact, the IP of my node. And that is thankfully done by Microsoft for you. If you need to do that yourself, this is a nightmare. Don't do that. Okay, and that's it for the specificity of Kubernetes and why you might really choose it, and if you choose it, what you should consider. Okay, so I think we are quite thorough on that. We can now switch to the next point, which is AGIC, with the long name Application Gateway as an ingress controller. So just as a reminder, ingress controller in the Kubernetes landscape is just a layer 7 load balancer with other feature, but to simplify, we can say it's just a layer 7 load balancing, which completes the basic layer 4 load balancing that you have with the service object and the kubeproxy blocks of Kubernetes. Okay, and the beauty of AGIC is that, as you can see on this little schema, is that it makes a correspondence between an application gateway in the Azure control plane and your Kubernetes control plane. So you will inherit some object in your Kubernetes environment with some pod corresponding to the application gateway which is living outside of Kubernetes. And that's the too long didn't read. If you want to have more information on that, you can check the documentation.
And I think that's a good point just to jump in for anyone again who's on their Kubernetes journey. If you ever look in the either the master control plane or the control plane or the master nodes, people call them different things, but you will see some pods deployed into that area, and they're called controllers. And this App Gateway Ingress Controller is no different. And all a controller is doing is it has one task. It has one job to do. And it's just watching. It's just there kind of looking at the current state of the world, looking at what the desired state of the world is, and basically comparing the two and going, hey, does the world look like it should right now? Yes, everything's good. Yes, everything's good. Yes, everything's good. Until the point where maybe a pod goes down or routes aren't available or something happens and it detects that and goes, uh-oh, these things aren't the same. I need to take some action. And that, for anyone listening in, is the big magic behind Kubernetes. It's just this big desired state machine, which is constantly checking, is everything okay? Is everything running as expected to the scenarios
this is the beauty of that. There is a lot of built-in resiliency in Kubernetes, so much that at one point some people are convinced that that this is a kind of zero ops solution, which is not quite the case yet.
Not yet.
Just to be clear, but this is really so rough and resilient, and those guys that build it kind of awesome job. Anyway, if we consider Agic now, we have two flavors, and we'll have a look on these two flavors. Either the add-on, either the open source project. The add-on, which is in GA now, so it was not the case when I first tried to use it, which explains why I did have some issue. So what I was mentioning is that you can deploy that through AZ-CLI, for example, or other API stuff. And the beauty of that is that since it's now in global availability, you have support from Microsoft. So the images on which the pods are built in, well, the container in the pods are built in, are managed by Microsoft and updated by Microsoft, and you're quite happy about that. And everything is deployed in kubesystem. I will show you that afterward. While on the other end, if you still want to use the open source project, you can. It is still, I guess the new feature are coming first in the open source project, and then once they are stable, they are adopted in the add-on. You can use the open source project and deploy that with other tools such as Helm, and you will have more choice on where you deploy that. Okay, so let me just prepare the next slide and switch to okay. So just before switching to some real object in Azure, when you deploy that, when you want to deploy the add-on, I'm also Lord of the Ring fan. So you have one command to configure everything, which is quite easy. But I displayed the output here on this slide because I'm not doing the output the same way in my configuration. I will show you how I do that. And it was the only way I could show you what it's doing. Not on this screen, the first line, AAD role propagation down. So now that it's completed, which means that you do have some Azure AD stuff acting behind the scene that you need to take into account if you want to do that your way. And it was not the case, as I mentioned again at first, but now it is done automatically, hopefully, and it's quite helpful. But okay, what does it mean? Let's switch to the real world. So where am I? Okay, here we are on my cluster, and if I go back over there, you can see. No, first let's switch to the cluster back. Okay, let's switch to this cluster. We have the overview, and if I go into the networking side, so you can see it over there. Let's zoom that, and as you can see, you have the application gateway enabled, which I enabled through this configuration, specifically the add-on. That's why it's visible as an add-on on the portal. If it was not done through the add-on, it would obviously not be visible by the portal, because it has no clue that you have an application gateway ingress controller deployed if you're not doing that through the Microsoft control plan. Okay. Okay. Next, what you need to consider is that your Kubernetes cluster, as a matter of fact, has some identity. And since it has some identity, you need to find which identity are used. And let's switch back again to properties so that we can find the backend resource group over there. And as you can see, I have a bunch of identity over there. You can see that we do have the AKS IGIC agent pool, which is the managed identity used for the node pool. And the one that we want to get is this one, the Ingress Application Gateway AKS IGIC. And this one is the particular managed identity that is provisioned by Microsoft under the hood once you activate your Ingress controller, and you will find that in your application gateway in the access control IAM. I did not do that myself, but if I'm trying to find, let me switch back because I'm lazy. I don't want to write that myself. If I switch back to properties over there, I have this identity over there, which is called Ingress Application Gateway. Okay, I just want to get back to that. And the role propagation is doing just that. If we check that over there, we should find, okay, this identity. And if we check, you can see that it is granted a contributor role on the resource group. So I did not do that myself. This is done by the propagation, and which is funny because we don't necessarily need this kind of role, but as you can see, we get this role. And if I check on the network, we will see other stuff. Since we are, well, just as a reminder, you probably know that an application gateway is living in its own virtual network. Can I show you that?
Please.
Network. Do I have the configuration? Okay, you can see over there the virtual network subnet sub AGW AGIC meetup, which is the name of my subnet. So I do have a dedicated subnet, and if I check that, what was done also on this specific subnet, the root table was configured so that the root is added to this application gateway subnet, so that your application gateway knows the root to your pod inside your Kubernetes cluster, which is managed by Kubernetes, which is configured in network by Kubernetes. If not, if you don't have that, application gateway will have no clue on how to reach this range, the 10.244.00/16, and your application gateway will not serve as an ingress controller correctly. So thankfully, Microsoft helped a lot because, again, everything is done on the background. So the ID propagation rule is done, and then at the end, you get something like that in the output if you do that. And you have what I showed you earlier, a new user assigned managed identity, as you can see over there, and an ingress application gateway, which is assigned the contributor role on your resource group. Okay, and that is done because when you pass the command, you pass it the information so that it can locate the application gateway by its ID and where it is. Okay, so that's the command that we do over there. And just so you see how it's done on my side. So let's reduce some of the stuff. If I'm zooming in, I will zoom again, but just let me close everything and zoom in on my configuration. So if I'm correct, this is somewhere around there. And as you can see, well, I did not mention that, but I'm also a huge Terraform fan because this is much way easier for me to use it and to train people on that. So for this specific use case, I did use, at the time I was doing it, null resource, and I'm passing the asset-click command inside of it. But once you do that, Terraform, for better or worse, is hiding the output, so you don't see the output. And I was not able to show you that, so that's why it's in the slide and not anywhere else. Okay, so to put it simply, with the add-on, this is very easy to do, and you will be able to have a working AGIC in your Kubernetes cluster. Since I mentioned that, let's switch in our cluster, and just check the workload because we do have a nice dashboard included. And as you can see over there, let me zoom in on that. You can see Ingress application gateway deployment in kube-system. And that is not something that I did because, as I said, I don't deploy in kube-system. This is done by Microsoft. And you can find here this fantastic pod deployment, which is managed by a deployment, if I'm correct. Okay, so it's easy, it's fine. Well, it doesn't mean that you don't have anything else to do with your application gateway as an Ingress controller, and we will have an example of that, but that's the easy part, okay? So unless you have another question, I will move on to the control freak way, which is the old way that hopefully we are able to do once we have understood what I try to detail, which are the role assignments and the required identity so that your system is working.
And I guess there may be some reasons why people still want to go for the open source route over the add-on, because I think they're quite clear actually on the documentation. The difference kind of between the add-on and using the App Gateway Ingress Controller open source project, there are still some subtle differences between what the add-on will give you versus so the Helm deployment versus the AKS add-on. So they talk about, for example, the Helm deployment values cannot be modified on the AKS add-on, or certain ones like verbosity level, private IP, shared, different things there. So what I'd kind of suggest with people as well is just taking a look and being familiar with the trade-offs, because using the add-on obviously brings simplicity, which is always good from a management perspective, but are there things you're trading away that actually you need and are worth understanding there?
There is one main reason that I discussed with some security guy, because I tend to talk a lot with those guys. If you use the add-on, you don't have any control on where the container image are coming from. Well, they are coming from Microsoft managed registry, so that's not a big deal, except if it is. And then you need to have a local copy of this image on your own managed registry, and then you need to have another, let's say, supply chain to get the Microsoft images and to import them in your own registry and scan them and rescan them and be sure that they are scanned properly. And then you build based on your own registry, and you are sure that you're not getting stuff from the outside. For a simple case, it might be the case if for any reason you want to control where are the image pulled, and then that's one way of doing it. Well, since it is the public cloud, you obviously need to be connected to the internet, but some people just want to have more control. So that's one reason that I've heard about.
And I think another one actually is I think you still can't prohibit targets as well using the add-on, if I remember rightly. So if you want the add-on to not use like a shared app gateway, for example.
Yeah.
I think the add-on cannot do that, whereas Helm can. So again, there's still a few differences, so worth reading the docs on that, because they are very, very good.
This is a very important point that you mentioned. And as a matter of fact, after discussing with some Microsoft Kubernetes-oriented people, they told me quite clearly that we should not share application gateway when it is used by as an AGIC, because, well, Kubernetes doesn't know that the application gateway is shared, and it will try to erase everything else. And so it can cause some issue. And as a matter of fact, I do have that issue also, even if I'm not sharing my application gateway with some of my clients. I tend to build that through Terraform, and then I have a lot of ignore lifecycle in my configuration, because since Kubernetes is doing some modification, if I'm not doing that, I tend to break everything, and well, I don't want to do that. So, okay. Good. Moving on. If you want to configure the application gateway with the open source project, please refer to the Azure GitHub.io documentation, which is much more thorough than the one you have on the Azure documentation. To be clear, it's not that I'm not satisfied with the Azure documentation. This is quite good. But on this specific topic, well, on all the Kubernetes related topic, if we have an open source project, usually the way to go is to follow the open source project documentation, because those guys writing on the open source project, they are dedicated to that, while the people responsible for the Azure documentation, they are responsible for all the Azure product documentation, and they cannot be as up to date, even if they are quite usually up to date, as much as the one developing for the open source project. Okay. So I put the link in the slide, and if you want, I will share with you the slide afterward. If you want to use Agik with the open source project, you need to first set up pod identity, and I will explain afterward why. And you need to use an Helm chart, because this is the way to go. This is much more simpler. But you also need to do everything of what was done automatically by the add-on, which are the airbag assignment, which we review together, and which are also the UDR configuration on the required subnet, which is exactly the application gateway subnet, which we explained earlier. Okay, so you can do that the way you want. But in my case, since as I mentioned, I'm a Terraform guy, I did everything through Terraform. So the manage identity, I create that with a Terraform configuration, and the airbag assignment, I also do that with Terraform, and I associate only my application gateway with the AKS provided UDR. I will show you the code afterward, just to be thorough.
Sure.
And do have I? Oh, okay. I do have some extract, but let's switch on the wheel road again. So as you can see here, we are on this slide, on this part, we were in the 01 Infra AKS Agik add-on. So now moving on, we'll go to the one with Helm. And you can see there is another part with Terraform, TF4 Cube and Helm, which is the Helm configuration. So what I did, to be clear on that, let me clear this screen. In this configuration, I created another Kubernetes cluster in another virtual network, because one other thing that we did not mention when we were talking about KubeNet, you can have only one Kubernetes cluster per virtual network. If you want more than one Kubernetes cluster with KubeNet, then you need more than one network. Okay. Then I created the Kubernetes cluster, and then I created the application gateway with a bunch of configuration, and I also have some assignment, and have a look on that. One way or another, but this one I did it for my side. The manage identity of my cluster, I get that from the output of my configuration. You can do that with an AZ-Click command, as a matter of fact, and then I use that as an output so that I can manage the rollback assignment to the proper role. So we need two. This is a specific case. I will not detail that, but those are the required role for pod identity. So I will not extend too much on that. But since if you want to use application gateway with the open source project, you do need pod identity. You need to have that in mind if you want to be able to make it work. As a matter of fact, I do have a GitHub repository which I can share with you so that you can see my code and try to break stuff on your own afterward. Where am I? Okay, those are the configuration. Here you can see the kubelet attribution, which is not the one I wanted to show you. I guess this is in the other configuration. Okay, so once I have my cluster configured, I do have that stuff over there, and I need to configure another bunch of things. So this one is local for my Helm configuration. So usually the Helm chart are quite well documented, and that's maybe one of the main lack of the open source project of Agik. The Helm chart is not that well documented. Well, at least in the Helm chart. If you look on that, usually you should have something over there and you have nothing, which is not that good. Anyway, as you can see, I'm able to, as you mentioned, Chris, have more agility on the configuration, so I can choose the verbosity of my AGIC and can also specify the application gateway ID that I want to use. And here you can see that I'm referring an output from myself, the resource group. I'm also configure RBAC because I need to do that, and I also configure some manage identity resource which are propagated through the pod identity configuration. I do have another user assigned identity, which is the same that I used that I showed you earlier for AGIC with the add-on, and this one I'm giving it the same role that was done by Microsoft on the other way around, except that I guess that my scope. Oh no, that my scope is also the resource group. So I did follow exactly what was done by Microsoft on this case, and here, as you can see, I'm also assigning the root to my application gateway subnet. And then I'm installing, well, not curd because I don't want to talk about that today, not pod identity because this is a required part, but not what we want to discuss today. And here, as you can see, I have the AGIC YAML config template, which is something that you get on the documentation, and I can show you that, I think, because I should have that somewhere. Okay, it's over there. And as you can see, this is a file. Let me zoom that I pre-populate with some interpolation from the Terraform point of view so that I can feed that automatically. The file is just templated, and then I will automatically feed the value through my Terraform API. And as you mentioned, Chris, you're right. If you want to share that, you can share your application gateway by specifying if the application gateway is shared or not. And as you can see, I did not share it. The interesting part is afterward over there. For the authentication, you specify that you want to use Azure AD Pod Identity, and you specify the Pod Identity resource and the Pod Identity client ID, which is an ID associated in Azure ID. Okay, and then we have also the RBAC is enabled, and I guess that's all. And if I'm switching back to my main, you should see that, well, I'm able to get, well, I'm also using Terraform for Helm. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but as I mentioned, it helps me to be more thorough because I have only one tool to manage, and it's easier for me. Just to show you that everything is done, but we'll do just a Terraform init. And then the plan, just to show you that nothing is to do. There is nothing to do. And then we switch back to the configuration of our other cluster just to show that we have an application gateway, but Kubernetes on the Azure side does not know about it. And if I'm doing a plan, I should have nothing to apply except maybe some output consideration. Hopefully, and if something happens, it might mean that I broke something, but well, it can happen.
That's a good sign. It's refreshing all of your existing states and bringing that in rather than.
It means that yes, everything is up to date. Okay, so it means that there was no difference. So let's switch back. I cheated because, well, it's not that we could not have done that live, but application gateway, at least with AGIC for Helm, I mean, is taking quite a lot of time to populate the object. And so if we want to have some example of an ingress object, we would have to pause and resume and wait the few minutes that it's available. So it's not quite ideal. So I didn't want to do that. It's not this one. On this one, I have another cluster. And as you can see on this one, application gateway seems to not be enabled, but it is. And if you check in the namespace, if you check in kubesystem, you don't see the ingress controller deployment, but hey, what did I see here? Do I see a namespace called AGIC? Yes, I do. And we do have a deployment called Agic Ingress Azure, which is the Agic that I deployed through the open source project. So it exists, okay? Except that it's not deployed the same way, okay? What else can I show you? Well, on my application gateway, oh, maybe I can check that. Check if we do have some output over there. Do I have some output there? Maybe not. What will be interesting? Well, we do have an interesting thing, but this is not exactly what we want to see. Check. What I would like to get is the identity that was created earlier and that I'm using in my template file, so that I could show you that this identity is the one that is used over otherwise. Well, it's not that easy to show you that, but if we check, I guess that here we have the output of the file, the YAML file that is configured, and yes, this is what I wanted to show you. Well, usually you should not show that in a real environment, so you should not put that in an output, but this is for the purpose of a demonstration. So you can see that I have UI Agic identity client ID, which is F255. Let's check if we find this identity. I guess it should be somewhere over there. I guess this is this one. No, not this one.
One below, I think.
Yeah, you might be right. Yep, that's the one. Okay, this client ID, and if I check this identity, UI Agic, I check on my resource group the same way, we should see in the role assignment that we have the contributor access that was granted to the resource group, which is exactly what I wanted to have. So we are quite happy. It means that we are able to reproduce what is done behind the scene by Microsoft. And now we can play with Kubernetes with Ingress objects, which is fun because we are quite in time. Just to be simple, because this is mainly, well, we are talking about Kubernetes, but this is more an Azure Kubernetes session. So we'll still see a few stuff about what can do Agic. So one of the main idea behind Agic is to use the available feature of application gateway. So for example, getting certificate from a Key Vault automatically through the application gateway identity, which is what we did. So if I'm switching back to my configuration, I should have not in this resource group, but in this one I have a resource group Agic Key Vault. You can see that I created that quite some time. I do have some certificate over there. Okay, self-sign that I'm using in my configuration, and I will show you that. Where is it? Over there. If I'm going now in my Azure Voting app, the infamous Azure Voting app, I added an ingress object which should be over there. Okay, as you can see, I have an ingress object, and if you are attentive, you may have seen that I'm still in V1 beta 1, which I should not be because we are in Kubernetes 1.20, and this is not in beta anymore for the ingress. But anyway, the name of my ingress is Azure Vote Ingress, and as you can see in the class, this is Azure Application Gateway. So it means that this is an application gateway ingress, and as you can see also, we are taking the certificate directly from the application gateway SSL certificate, which in its turn got this certificate in the Key Vault that I showed you earlier. Okay, and then we are just creating our service with a TLS and a host of voting app.lab.technews.cloud, which is a name that I have registered on my own DNS. And if I'm taking that, I should see, well, where am I? Oh, this might not be the good one. This one is not the one I want to show you. The one I want to show you in the one in this slide, because I do have some YAML template for the voting app with the AGK add-on, which is quite the same now. Now we have two different Ingress controller, one managed by Microsoft, the other not. But the feature are quite similar, except what you mentioned earlier. But if we check that, let's just connect on our issue with my terminal. New terminal. Okay. Okay. Alors, let's just check that we are connected on the Kubernetes cluster that we want. kubectl config get context. I have a bunch of context, as you can see over there. I have at least two. The one that I want to show you is AKS Agic, and there was a strange print screen over there. Let me zoom on that. You can see I have another one, AKS Helm, which is the other one. We switch on this one afterward, but for now, suffice to say that we are connected to the appropriate cluster. So let's just do a kubectl get in eng to list the ingress controller object. As you can see, I have my voting app. This is, as a matter of fact, this configuration. If I were to just copy paste the path and do kubectl without the X by F and the path, it should tell me that nothing is changed because everything was done correctly. Okay, but let's just check this path. If I'm taking this path and going into my navigator, I should have the HTTPS. Obviously, I opened the flow on my network security group first, but I did pass that under silence. And as you can see, I have the mentioned voting app. And if we check the certificate, let's check what we have. Okay, can I get more information? Yes, perfect. Let's display the certificate or not. No, not. Okay. Sorry
I
about
guess
that.
it's okay. We see the fact that it's probably a self-signed certificate.
This is the self-signed certificate, which is written in French, not secure because it is not known by my navigator. But anyway, so this is indeed my certificate. It means that it's working. And just to be thorough, let's just show you another one, which is on the other context. As you can see, let me just clear that and just do a kubectl use context. Helm, if I'm correct. No. This is not use context. Should be use context. Oh, no. Because this is config use context. And here you can see that I'm not that much a specialist of Kubernetes. Okay. And if I'm doing a kubectl get eng for ingress, I should have one. Okay. And this one is guestbook, but with another IP, which is the IP of my other cluster. Just to be sure, let's verify that. Over there, and over there. And you can see the IP 51, 105, 105. Are we clear about that? Yes, this is the same. Okay. If I'm copy pasting that and going over there, let's close this one and close this one. This is not the same app because I wanted to have two different apps. And I have the other application used in demonstration, which is the guestbook, which is available also on another unsecured configuration because this is a guestbook.lab.technews.cloud. This is not the same DNS name, obviously, because, well, it should not be since it is another cluster, but I do have the two environments working, and I'm quite happy about that. Which means I can make it work one way or another. What I did not explore today, but again, this is not a Kubernetes session. There are other means of giving certificate to your ingress controller object or your ingress object. You can use Cert Manager, you can use self-signed certificate or another way. I choose to use the application gateway certificate provided through a Key Vault, because I like that way, because it's more managed. But you don't have to do that. You can do that the way you want. In a secured environment, some people might require that. Having only the application gateway, being able to get the certificate from a known Key Vault, so that your ingress objects are only using certificates that are validated by the security. And that's one way of having that managed outside of the Kubernetes control plan. Because let's be honest, not everyone is Kubernetes experienced, and it's not that easy to audit in a security point of view a Kubernetes environment with all the moving part of Kubernetes. And I guess that's all for me.
Excellent.
So I had a lot of other print screen, but as I said, it was not the case to just show you some print screen. So those are the slide of what I showed you, but I showed you. Okay.
Excellent. Good. And I guess, to kind of recap, I guess, for everyone who's been listening in here, we've gone ahead and looked at the difference between KubeNet and Azure CNI. We've then looked at App Gateway Ingress Controller and how you can use that as an ingress for your cluster. And the ingress is the layer 7 load balancer to bring traffic into the cluster from the outside world. I guess there are any kind of final parting tips that you want to leave people with at all, David? That kind of top maybe one or two things that from everything you've spoken about today you want people to take away and remember.
Well, the takeaway that I will give you is the GitHub repo, so that you can get the code and break stuff on your own. The main takeaway, if you have the opportunity to do that, you need to test stuff in your sandbox, obviously. Except if you're much more experienced than me, I guess that there will be some case when you have to break things to make it work. The open source project is the way to go again if you want to see the feature of application gateway as an ingress controller. And for example, one thing that we did not discuss, because this is much more Kubernetes centric, it's the capability to have auto scaling based on traffic configured on Azure Monitor. So we do have a very thorough integration possible. I will say only possible because for now I don't do it, between your Kubernetes environment and your Azure environment. And that's where there is value in having Azure Kubernetes service instead of having a vanilla Kubernetes. If you're using that in Azure, you should try to take benefit of all the managed services that are living inside the Azure platform, and to access that with the different solution being add-on or open source project that you can use to simplify your life as a, let's say, DevSecOps stuff everything guy.
Excellent. Excellent. No, lots of great information in there, David. Thank you for coming on and talking all about that. Really, I think, deep topic for folks who are looking at AKS and looking at KubeNet and looking at App Gateway Ingress Controller. So thank you for coming on and sharing the great story here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So there we go, folks. We have been looking all at AKS, KubeNet, App Gateway Ingress Controller, a little bit of Azure CNI, but overall how you can bring all of that together into your deployment, whether you use the AKS add-on, whether you go ahead and actually use the open source project. But remember, ultimately, Kubernetes, all of the things we kind of talked about, like the pod identity, like the App Gateway Ingress Controller, are open source projects from Microsoft. So just keep that in mind when you think about taking those services on. Absolutely a good way to go. I think there's a great open source world of technology out there, but definitely a stumbling block. I've seen a few organizations go along, as David and I were talking about a moment there. So you know what to do, folks. If you've liked the episode, please hit the like button, please hit subscribe, and please hit the notification bell so you know as soon as there is new content. And of course, not just on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and cloudwithchris.com, where you can listen to this episode and read the transcript in real time. So with that, thank you for joining in, folks. Stay safe, stay healthy, and until the next one, bye for now.